One thing that makes you unique and different to most people is the amount of energy that you bring into a room. What drives you and what gives you that energy?
I've got more time now to devote to the things that I love, and I spend less time doing some of the things that I didn't love. So I think that's a good way of giving me energy. What I've tried to do in recent years is really focus on things like my sleep, which to me is, the fundamental thing of all when it comes to energy. Exercise is a great stress relief for me. That kind of keeps my energy levels up.
How do you pick yourself up from the negative dips?
I really focus on breathing. So I learned this really great technique called rhythmic breathing, which is when you're in a state of funk or stress, if you just stop and you focus on your breathing. So you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold, and then you breathe out for 4, and you hold and you repeat. What it does is it takes away all of that anxiety. It kind of gets rid of the fog in your brain and it moves you back to a place of coherence. The other thing I would do, though, is I'd just desperately try and find perspective. And that usually requires stopping, taking myself out of a situation, maybe distracting myself with some music, going for a walk around the block, doing some exercise, whatever it might be.
In leadership terms, when you talk about baking a pie, what do you mean by that?
The typical leader, probably 70% of their time is spent doing, 20% of their time is spent leading, and then about 10% of their time is spent on other stuff like planning. What this model advocates, and what I firmly believe, is that the healthy leadership pie, the ideal pie we should be aspiring to, would be 70% of our time leading, and then 20% of our time doing, down from 70, and then probably 10% of our time on the planning, the development, the outsight, and the self-care. I think it was Herminia Ibarra who said that 85% of leaders are operating at the level below their pay grade. We stick to what we're comfortable at a lot of the time. And also we get a bit more of a buzz out of doing stuff. We tell ourselves things like, my boss wouldn't really appreciate me spending my time just doing one-to-ones. They'd much rather there was steam coming off the keyboard and I was delivering loads. The other thing is, every time we do something, we are robbing ourselves of time to step back, and we're robbing our people the opportunity to step up.
The obvious question then is, if we want to start changing that, how do we start? How do we go about it?
Well, I think we have to start reframing what our role looks like as a leader. Still, for a lot of leaders these days, they still believe their role is to have all of the answers, whereas I believe their role is to ask the right questions and to kind of delegate decision-making as low as they possibly can.
In other words, empowering our teams to cut loose, really?
Definitely. And I know there are loads of reasons why we're scared to do that, because we tell ourselves things like, oh, my boss has asked me personally to do it, so I need to do it. We also tell ourselves things like, my people are too busy, or if I give it to them to do, they won't do it as well as me. I think the other thing with empowerment, though, Ewan, is it's not enough just to give it. Yes, it's one thing to kind of give people the responsibility, but what if they don't want to take it? So how do we kind of help them want to step up?
What simple advice would you give for dealing with each other and treating each other with respect, I guess?
Whenever I do work with leaders on engagement, I never start with how do you engage other people. I start with how do you protect and boost your own engagement? Because I think the more that we can do that, the more engaging we're going to be with the people we lead, but also the people we interact with and the people above us. And I think in terms of, managing upwards, I think as leaders, we kind of start to think that our role is to do what our bosses want of us, and we are there to kind of fit their mold and meet their needs. And I don't agree with that. I think it has to be a two-way street. I think we need to be able to articulate to our boss, no matter how senior we are, what our engagement needs are, and also hear from them, what they want from us, and we contract.
Yeah, to create organisational change rather than individual change, I guess.
Absolutely. And you know what? These leaders at the top of the organisations are the ones that are setting the tone. If they are sending out a message, either overtly or, covertly, that I'm Superman or I'm Superwoman, I don't have any needs, I don't need any recognition from people, that's going to permeate through the culture at other levels. So I'm a big fan of kind of what I call vulnerable leadership, authentic leadership, people at the top of the organization, not coming across like robots, but coming across like real human beings who have good days and bad days, because that's what builds the emotional connection. That's what builds the trust. But for so many leaders, they find that really hard to do. They feel like it's going to expose them. They're going to lose credibility. My view is the less they do that, the more credibility they lose.
In terms of developing the best version of ourselves, what would your advice be to go about that? Is that a case of letting go of the comfort blanket?
I'm a big believer in understanding your strengths and playing to them. And it amazes me that a lot of people don't really know what their strengths are. They can't really configure the jobs they look for and what they do each day towards that, which I do think brings around more engagement and a better version of you. But I think you're right, there has to be a little bit of the stepping out of the comfort zone as well. We need to feel like we're being stretched and developed, because ultimately, if we think about the people who are going to be most successful in the future, they're not going to be the people who know the most. They're going to be the people who can learn the most, the people who are the most agile at adapting. I heard a quote recently that the two most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day that you realise why you were born. And I love that, because I think the more we can understand our purpose, our personal purpose, why are we here on this earth, and the more we can understand our strengths and the more we can kind of combine the two, the better we're going to be and the more engaged we're going to feel.
What's the best lesson you've learned yourself over your career?
Well, I can see where a lot of companies go wrong. For example, you see companies thinking that rather than measure engagement once a year, if we measure it more regularly, engagement will go up. It won't. It'll just tell you that it's not where it needs to be more often. The other thing I see is a lot of organisations only really talk about engagement when it's survey time. The more you can make engagement everyone's accountability, the further you will go. You will always need to do some stuff at an organisational level as well, but let that be the 30% and let the team piece be the 70%. It's when you make that shift to focusing on the local rather than the global, that's when engagement kind of really takes off.
A few quick-fire questions just to brain-dump from you, if that's okay. Your favourite book or one you've read recently?
So one is Triggers by Marshall Goldsmith, and the other one is The Way We're Working Isn't Working by Tony Schwartz and John Gomes. They talk about what are the things that take our energy off a cliff, what are the things that kind of make us question our own value. One of the things that I took from the Tony Schwartz book is if someone says something to you and it triggers you and it makes you feel crap, just think about what was their intent. Was their intent to make you feel crap, or was their intent something else?
Have you listened to any good motivational talks or TED Talks recently?
So I'm a big fan of Brené Brown. So, there's the classic one she did on vulnerability, which is great because, she says what makes you vulnerable makes you beautiful. And I'm a really big believer in that. I think being an authentic leader, showing you're not perfect, that's a great way to engage and inspire people.
You've given me a few great quotes already, but what's your favourite quote?
It comes from Isaac Asimov, and it's your assumptions are your window on the world. Dust them off from time to time to let the light in. We spend so much of our time at work holding on to these assumptions, and they don't always serve us. Separating the facts from the feelings, thinking about people's intent, all of that is a great way to kind of make our life taste a bit sweeter.
To wrap up, if someone wanted to reach out to you, how do they go about it?
Come to LinkedIn, they'll find me on there, Anthony Burrows, the one with the spiky blonde hair. And there's our website as well, www.intelligent-emotion.com.
Well, fantastic. Thanks again for all of your energy and sharing it with us as a wider audience. Much appreciated, and take care.
Thank you. Thank you very much.